Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel. This one's called Identifying the Erev Rav. I will close up their breaches. Before we begin, though, I gotta say something to everybody. I know, and I've also noticed, some people are very salty about what I said, that America is Babylon and so on and so forth, and that there are good redeeming qualities in America. And again, if you paid attention to last week's class, I wasn't saying that there weren't any good qualities to America. It's not about the qualities, it's about the foundation itself. So, what we're going to be learning today is about the Erev Rav, the embedded enemy from within, which is, like I said, this may as well be called the enemy from within. I'm not saying that Americans are bad. Like I said, I'm not saying that Christians are bad, chas v'shalom. Everyone wants a connection with God. It's how it happens, along what way. The same people that founded America under the guise of freedom, right, and escape from tyranny, have just shifted the empire that once was to looking the way it is today. Today in America, like I said, come on, if you do a little bit of digging, you know you're not free. Democrats, Republicans, though you might not agree, guess what? But someone is still pulling everyone's strings, and you'll see it comes back to the same small source. Erev Rav, who we must sift through in order to get them out. The same people that established the United States of America are the same people that established the state of the modern Zionist state of Israel, are the same people that built the tower in Babylon. This is what I'm saying. Great. Yes, there are wonderful people who are trying to do good, genuinely. I believe that. I know that. But this is this is hard stuff that we're teaching here. To learn that the world that you know is actually a lie. It's difficult. But I'm bringing source after source, and most people don't even need these sources. A lot of secular people are like, what the hell is going on? Everyone's a lie. Everything is lying. Everything is trying to push this thing, push an agenda. You already see it. But now if I'm giving you biblical sources, can you not see that? So before we delve into this, which, again, if you're already having trouble adapting to what's going on, this is going to be way too difficult for you. Because again, I'm not ranking on anybody. I'm showing you the people in most cases that Erev Rav is actually embedded within the Jewish people, right? So again, but I got something for you today. I want something uplifting before we go through this or while we go through this. Every morning I have a routine. Before I daven, I sit down in this here chair. There's a window right over here. If it's dark, I sit in a chair over there where I got a lamp on. But if it's a little bit light, then, there's a window right over here. And I have a morning routine of which things I read and I mini pray before I actually put on my tefillin and I start praying. So I just want to share these things with you because it gives you an appreciation of everything that goes on. You have Perek Shira. It's called the Song of the Universe. Okay, here, I'll bring it closer. The Song of the Universe. This is from the Art Scroll edition. So you got beautiful pictures and everything, but what is this? This is actually written in the Zohar of Perek Shira. Every day we say, Sunday through Friday, verses in Tehillim, or in the Torah that match all of creation. And in the end, on Friday, we say this all special prayer of recognition of God and his hand in everything. So this is like the song mamash of the universe, of the plants and the clouds and heaven and hell and the animals and the fish and so on and so forth. A lot to appreciate by. So again, it's called Perek Shira, the Song of the Universe, and you could get it from Art Scroll in English. In addition to that, I read the Tikkunim Chadashim LaRamchal. I've brought this up in a lot of these teachings in Achrei Kirshit. The Ramchal has 70 teachings that coincide with the last verse in the Torah, as opposed to the 70 Tikkunim of the Zohar, which the Rashbi discusses the first verse in the Torah. So, it's Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz, right? That's the first one. And then the last one is Ulechol hayad hachazaka v'hamora hagadol she'asa Moshe le'enei kol Yisrael. Right? So in other words, the Rashbi in the Zohar 2,000 years ago is discussing the beginning, the Ramchal, who received also word from Eliyahu Navi and other sages, I mean, talking about sages both dead and alive, including Moshe Rabbeinu, the guy, right? So he completed his work. It started with the Rashbi, it ended with the Ramchal. So these are 70 tikkunim. So I'm reading one of these every day in preparation for when this cycle of this begins, which is Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday, which is the 7th of Adar. So I'm reading through it then, because then I have a schedule to keep after that point. Okay? In addition to, and again, it is uplifting because you see God's hand in everything. In addition to that, there is the Ramchal's Taf Kuf Tetvav, which is 515 prayers to the Ramchal. Where do you get these 515 prayers from? When Moses said, Va'etchanan el Hashem, Va'etchanan is 515, Gimatria, and he prayed to God to come into Israel. In other words, he hit every single prayer, 515. 515 for the Ramchal. Again, this elevates God's, our appreciation of God. I don't think they have this in English at all. I apologize. Also, the Tikkunim Chadashim, they don't. But maybe one day I'll go through these with you because it's wonderful. Then something very interesting happened. Last week at like 8:30 at night, since we're in Jerusalem in a somewhat, religious area, it's kind of mixed, but we get a lot of knocks on our door, people come and ask for money, and so on and so forth. So one night at 8:30, 9 o'clock, which I'll be honest with you, I don't appreciate it, at that time, come earlier, but fine. Okay, no problem. A bunch of Breslov guys came, right? Breslov guys, the guys with the white yarmulkes with the long pace who, just go nuts. They dance in the street. Those are Breslov guys. Happy people. They came to the door. I'm like, okay, here. So I gave the dude some money. And he goes, wait, hold on. Do you have this book? I said, no. He goes, so take the book. I said, no, give it to somebody else. He said, no, please take the book. I took the book. Who is this guy? Look at this adorable guy. This guy's name is Israel Saba. Okay? His real name is Rabbi Israel Be'er Od Sa'ar. Okay, so he was born in Tveria, I think. Anyway, I prayed at this guy's grave twice. He's buried in Har Menuchot in Jerusalem. And he lived a good life. So I'm like, okay, fine. So I started on Shabbat reading through some of his life and how he came to be and his awareness that he had when he was 7, 8 years old, contemplating about things that most people don't until they're 60, 70. And this guy's journey, which will humble us all. Within his book, and he's a Breslover guy, within his book, he actually refers to Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, obviously. And in his books of Hishtapchut HaNefesh and Meshivat HaNefesh. Hishtapchut HaNefesh, I think you can get that in English. It's the pouring out of the soul by Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. You should find that out. Again, none of these great rabbis wrote. All their students wrote the books they compiled after their deaths. Rabbi Nachman from Breslov lived till 38 years old, just like the Ari. Right? The Ari didn't write anything. Rabbi Chaim Vital, his number one student, wrote these things. So I think Rabbi Natan from Breslov is the number one student of Rabbi Nachman from Breslov, and he compiled all his works together. Beautiful thing. Anyway, so based on that book, I have this book, but I never really opened it because I never fully got into the Breslov thing. And it's so beautiful because it lifts you up and it shows you no matter how deep you have fallen in the pits of filth and terrible thoughts come into your head, no matter what you have done, God is there, waiting for you, even in the darkest of dark places, even if you fall down to Sheol. That's where you will be able to hear God. That's where you'll be able to call out to God in the right frequency, and God will elevate you. This is like never give up. Never give up, no matter what you go through. And in addition, when you are going through these hardships, it's only for your benefit. Because you think you're descending, but you are actually ascending. It's like pulling back a bow, right? A bow and arrow. Let's say I'm pulling it back. So this is me. I'm like, oh, I'm going lower and lower and lower. No, this is not as a punishment. This is because the lower you go, boom, and it's released, the higher you will fly. This is exactly what he's talking about over there. So I just started reading this week is a beautiful thing. And in addition, something else of which everybody needs to have, this is Chafetz Chaim, a lesson a day. Okay, also I think it's Art Scroll. You all know this one. It's very simple. Got a lesson today according to the Hebrew calendar, and there's something that I read this morning that I have to read right now because I even marked it over here, you know? Okay, so it's very simple. It gives you a lesson on Lashon Hara, what to do, what not to do, how to do what is considered this, what is considered that, and then you have growth through tribulation. I mean, that's what this title is called. On the next page, it's basically the sages teach, right? Check this out. This morning, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said, one should feel a sense of gratitude towards the Holy One, blessed be He, when suffering comes upon him. Why? Because suffering draws a person close to Him. As is written, Hashem reproves the one whom He loves. Proverbs 3:12. When suffering comes upon a person, he should accept it and withstand the test, for its reward is infinite. And this is in Midrash Tanchuma, Parashat Ki Tetzeh, Ki Seiseh. They're very Ashkenaz here. Ki Tetzeh 2. Wait silently for the salvation of Hashem and wait longingly for Him. This is Psalms 37:7. Place your hope in the Holy One, blessed be He. If He brings afflictions upon you, do not demonstrate disdain, because I know we're going through troubles. I see it, you see it. Come on. Do not demonstrate disdain. Rather, accept your lot like one who would accept musical instruments. Nice to the ear. Hitcholel is the word. Wait longingly, and can homiletically be related to chalalin. Chalil is a flute. And this is from Yalkut Shimoni. To accept insult without bitterness. Who can accept here insult without, I get bitter, somebody's, because that means either that person means something to me, or what they said is somewhat true, you see? Nevertheless, to accept insult without bitterness, with the knowledge that all that transpires is an expression of divine will, is to accept a form of affliction as the passage above states. Those who are insulted and do not insult, who act out of love and are glad in their affliction, the reward for such acceptance is without measure. You see, without measure. So anyway, this is how I start my day before I even start my day. Most of the time it helps, okay? We all have to try. I'm struggling just like you, but we have to try. We have to do these things. We should never give up hope, never lose faith, never stop looking to God no matter where we are, okay? Right now, the reason that I'm teaching Acharit Kereshit, all this stuff, I know we're getting to the very difficult end, is because the world around us is crumbling, and now people can finally start to see it. And I want to help you make sense of it. So this is what is happening. So when I say America has to fall, it's not me saying it. Every single kingdom and government in the world must fall. Fall. Be demolished, destroyed, not stand. Only when this happens, as we have read and will read again, only then will Mashiach rise. So you understand what has to come. I'm not speaking of the good people who desire to do good, whether they believe in God or not. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the system that has been in place for 5,000 years, and it is so corrupt that no matter what you put on it, it will become corrupt. It will get lost within the system. That's why, again, I've discussed this so many times. Every politician that tried to stand up and do something good was assassinated. Okay? From Lincoln to JFK and even Yitzhak Rabin, who, like I said, he was part of the Freemasons. Noted. Murder Jews. Noted. And yet, during the Oslo Accords, which he did not agree to, because he did not move forward with it, that was Shimon Peres, he was taken out, they said, by a gunman, but we all saw the tape. I was here watching this live. Come on. Same thing, like, oh yeah, and Oswald shot JFK. Sure he did. Recreate that? Impossible, even with today's upgraded weapons. Okay, we know all these crazy conspiracy things that are not even conspiracy. It is what it is, and now more people are starting to see it because they're losing faith in their government that would never lie to them, of course. Okay? And now, speaking of governments that would never lie to you, we are going to be discussing the Erev Rav. This is a difficult topic, and I just want to prepare everyone for this. I have discussed this before, years ago, but now we're going into depth, and it's very relevant to our time. So, thank you for indulging me over here where I just want to uplift everybody. And without further ado, let's do this. Okay, so like we said, this may as well be called The Enemy Within. This is the final subject matter in our teaching of the last 6 months. Over the past 7 months. Over the past 7 months, we have been learning of the signs of the times and how to properly navigate through them. Everything you should be able to see clear as day right now and identify it by its properties, right? Everything we've learned. Oh, it's this. No, it's that. No, it's that. No, it's this. What's real, what's not real. Thereby understanding more than less of where we all stand. From a biblical perspective as well. That's the comforting part, you see. When you read Masechet Sotah, Perek 9, chapter 9, which we are again going to go over in this class and in the next class, you'll see exactly what is going to happen. And everything has to crumble. Ben David will not come until ... and then they fill in the blanks, which is something that currently has to happen. So when we see it happening, you understand, oh, whoa, this is part of God's plan. This was given to us over 2,000 years ago based on the Torah that was given to us over 1,500 years before that. So God's got this. God's got this. Take it with excitement, with anticipation, not with, it's not like that. Okay, let's do this. So this whole thing, the Erev Rav, the Erev Rav is a tricky one for all you common folk out there, and that's because the entire purpose of the Erev Rav is to be sneaky, as deceptive as possible. They won't look like Erev Rav. Like I said, Satan ain't going to come to you with the horns and a pitchfork. That's Christian stuff. That is not how Satan comes to you. That is not how you are being deceived. Otherwise, how would that be a deception at all? This whole thing is part of the job description of the Erev Rav. This is the dangerous part. Just because someone disagrees with you does not make them Erev Rav, okay? Because everyone's got an opinion, and everyone is going to be disagreed with at one point or another by someone else. Doesn't make them Erev Rav, okay? But we will be discussing the categories and what to look out for. And after doing this, you will be absolutely shocked and appalled by the potential candidates. So who are the Erev Rav? And where did they come from? The Erev Rav are the garbage, the filth that came out of whatever is good. This is not to be confused with the Erev Rav who left Egypt with Israel necessarily. Okay, there is a link between the two, but that's not necessarily them. But for instance, it would be Ishmael who came out of Avraham, which we have learned was necessary in order for Isaac to be pure. This is what Sarah saw and what Abraham didn't. Have a child with that woman, so whatever is good in the chesed that you are can come out. And then Ishmael was the opposite of chesed. He's a thief, as opposed to chesed is giving. Same thing with Esav, coming out first. Esav is murder, right? Is blood, red, murder. That's what his thing is. Thou shalt not kill. Jacob was a peaceful man, dwelling in tents. That was his thing. So first, the schmutz had to come out in order for the goodness to be pure. So they are called in Hebrew, motz vatevin, chaff and hay, from among the wheat, which are Israel. One of the famous instances of this particular topic came with Esav and Isaac. How could Isaac not see what has become of his son? Well, simply put, he wasn't supposed to. Otherwise, what? Isaac couldn't see? Of course he could. Isaac saw everything. But the question that Esav kept on asking Isaac about how to enrich the chaff in Bereshit Rabbah. How do I enrich the chaff, Dad? Which was like, you're not supposed to. You got to take it. No, but how do I enrich it so I could give a tithe, It's like, okay. Why did he ask this? Because Esav knew who he was. He knew exactly who he was. And he wanted to find sneaky ways to enrich the chaff, meaning himself, or legitimize who he was, so he can receive all the reward without the responsibility. There's your answer. We have learned in the Talmud that the son of David cannot come until Israel will be separated from the nations. And the nations will be, as David said in Psalms 1 verse 4, not so the wicked, but they are like chaff that the wind drives away. So when the two Mashiachs come, one after the other, they will be on the level of Abraham and Isaac, and they will make this separation on that level. I say Abraham and Isaac because, again, Mashiach ben Yosef is judgment. Mashiach ben David is chesed. Isaac and Abraham. But we're not done, because there's still going to be a sort of like a mixing over here, a bran mixed with the flour itself, and they stick to it and are very, very hard to detect. In other words, after the thing already starts, you still have things to separate. And this, after everything is already mixed, that's the Erev Rav, the garbage from the side of where? Jacob. Not from Jacob per se, but those that are called Jews, if you will. And these must be separated before the time of the end. So this is what is currently happening and will currently happen in the world, especially over the next 2 years. Pay attention. Watch a lot of people being exposed. Zephaniah 3:11. Those who rejoice in your pride, right? Who are these? Alizei gavatcha. On that day you shall not be ashamed of all your deeds which you rebelled against me, for then I will remove from your midst those who rejoice in your pride, and you shall no longer continue to be haughty on my holy mount. God is saying to Israel, listen, you're not going to be ashamed of your deed, okay? Of your deeds. You did rebel against me, but from those who rebelled against me, I'm going to remove from your midst those who rejoice on your pride. And I will leave over in your midst a humble and poor people, and they shall take shelter in the name of the Lord. You see that? God, from Israel who sinned, God is going to remove the Erev Rav who essentially caused these sins. Now, how will they be taken out? Just as they have been at first. This is called Acharit Kereshit, after all, and the end is like the beginning. Now, where was the first time we actually saw the children of Israel who carry the name Israel removed from the congregation, and the smaller congregation remained and then went on to receive the Torah? This is going to happen again. When this first happened was during the 3 days of darkness. Some say 9, some say 15. In total, it was actually 15 days of darkness. Again, there were different levels to them. In the 3 days of darkness in Egypt, when God removed 80% of the children of Israel, loved them all, they did not mix with the Egyptians, they kept their own names and everything, but they did not want change. They were happy with how things were, with the current government of how things are, and that is it. And they said, I will be a good son of Israel here. God said, no, you cannot receive the Torah. And so, just like then, so will it be now, that 80% of all the children of Israel will be taken out in the darkness. Every one of the 10 plagues in Egypt was midah keneged midah. What the Egyptians did towards Israel, God did right back to them 1,000-fold. This you can actually read in Tana Dabei Eliyahu, the words of Elijah the prophet. He discusses what every single plague, it's because of exactly what the Egyptians did to Israel, and so then they received it back. Except for the plague of darkness. That was designed to cover up the shame of the house of Jacob, who would not let go of this world, and they were taken out. But the Erev Rav are so deeply rooted within Israel today that in many cases it's very less obvious. It's hard to tell really who's who, which is why God said in Zechariah 13:9, and I will bring the third in fire, and I will refine them as one refines silver, and I will test them as one tests gold. You're going to be dunked in fire and beaten to a pulp, but good stuff is going to come out, and all the bad stuff is going to be burnt away. He shall call in my name, and I will respond to him. I said, he is my people, and he shall say, the Lord is my God. You'll only be able to say this once the Erev Rav is off. The only way to refine silver is within fire, and that means that everyone has to go through it to get all the impurities who are stuck to it. Furthermore, Abraham is silver and Isaac is gold. They are the colors of mercy and judgment. After this is done, then we read Deuteronomy 33:28, and Israel dwelled safely and alone as Jacob blessed them. I have noisy neighbors. In a land of grain and wine, also their heavens will drip dew. No. Okay. Moving couches now. Okay, that's no problem. In the Faithful Shepherd, it says that the Erev Rav are the leaven in the pulp, meaning Gaya Mehemana, and they are worse than the nations of the world. How are they worse than the nations of the world? In fact, the Erev Rav that causes the exile to extend and posing as Israel. You see? So, whenever you have Jews doing terrible things, despicable things, that's them. I know it's easy to say Erev Rav, but no, we're going to be learning again. This was already written thousands of years ago. We're bringing it to today, so then you can already see for yourself. And only once the separation takes place can the redemption arrive. Which is why the only reason Jacob has trouble is to weed out the fakers, meaning Jacob's trouble, the whole thing that's supposed to happen, right? The whole thing that we're going through right now. Why? So you can see exactly who the Erev Rav is. The Erev Rav will separate themselves from Israel. Don't worry. And this is all for our benefit. The souls of the Erev Rav that have left Egypt with Israel, the same Erev Rav who caused Israel to sin with the golden calf and bring death into the world yet again, have been reincarnated inside the children of Israel, and that is why we are currently learning this. In Tikkunei Zohar, it says, of Genesis 2:4, now, Ele toldot hashamayim va'aretz behi bara'am beyom asot Hashem Elohim eretz v'shamayim. I told you to learn this verse because behi bara'am is Avraham. God created the heavens and the earth through Abraham. This is true. There's also another way to read this verse, and which Abraham kind of countered. These are the generations of the heavens and the earth. When they were created, on that day the Lord God made earth and heaven. Okay? Ele, who is Ele? Ele is these, right? Toldot hashamayim ve'aretz. Check this out. The first letters of the words toldot hashamayim ve'aretz spells out tohu. What is tohu? Tohu vavohu. Chaos, as in the beginning, chaos. These are the generations of chaos. Ele toldot hashamayim ve'aretz. These are the generations of chaos. And then you have behi bara'am, which is as in Abraham, but he also created, but Abraham was the man of mercy, and so we know and have learned that anyone who has mercy upon his fellow man is from the seed of Abraham. And whoever does not show mercy or compassion upon creation is not from the seed of Abraham. And this is why if you take apart the word behi bar'am, you get behei bar'am. Behei, in 5. In 5, he created them. In 5, God created the generations of chaos. Okay, these chaotic generations that God created. And these are the 5 kinds of Erev Rav, each with their own name and identifying markers. Now, if you are interested, all this can be found in Hakdamat HaZohar, okay, the preface to the Zohar. But this is the Graz commentary on that. So the 5 groups we're going to go through the groups, and then we're going to go in the detail of all the groups. This is a basic thing what the Graz says. The Amalekites, the first ones. The Amalekites have been given permission to rob the less fortunate ones from Israel during the exile. Again, all these things happen only in exile. And they are from the remnant of the time of the flood, who then reincarnated while Israel were in Egypt. They are also affiliated with the 4th exile, which we are currently in, which is Edom. Amalek is a descendant of Esav, of Edom. Then, number 2, you have the Nephilim. These are on the side of prostitution. Nephilim are the fallen ones, lipol, to fall. Then we have the Giborim, right? Gvurah, the mighty men, the strong ones, right? Men of renown, as written in Genesis 6:4. And everything they do is to make a name for themselves. They are affiliated with the generation of the Tower of Babel. We'll get into that too. Then we have Rephaim. These are the ones who can, but do not show mercy, give charity or acts of kindness towards Torah scholars. They can save the world, but they choose not to. Rephaim is like demons. And then you have Anakim, giants, right? Who are giants? The Anakim, this version of the Erev Rav, not necessarily the giants. There are Anakim, yes, which we clearly discussed, but also who their souls are implemented inside over here. They make fun of Torah scholars. They ridicule Torah scholars. God, Shmad, and so on and so forth. Now, don't worry, we will get into detail about them. I just need to give you these names so you could differentiate. How do Erev Rav come to join Israel? Through conversion. In Masechet Psachim 87b, it says that the only reason Israel were exiled to the nations was to receive converts. This is why we had to go out there to get the sparks. And okay, so I'll give you a very clear example. You have plenty of Messianic Gentiles who slyly tried to convert to Judaism, or don't even, they just call themselves whatever. Just today, Anna Arena showed me an article where this Rabbi Rabbi Mort, right? Some Orthodox rabbi with payas converted to Islam. Whole article making a big deal. Turns out this guy was a Christian missionary posing as a rabbi. You see, giving the bad name to Jews no matter where he is, what he does. So again, not even trying to convert, just coming out and saying, hey, I'm a rabbi. So you see why I have problems with people who are not actually legitimate rabbis, no matter where they're from, even if they're Jews or not Jews, calling themselves rabbi. Why are you lying and giving false pretenses like you are something that you are not? This is very, very, very dangerous, borderlining, I don't know, Erev Rav. This is what we're learning here. So anyway, and again, all this stuff is taken from the Gra, the Vilna Gaon. So again, a lot of people, they want to slyly convert to Judaism, yet completely disregard the laws of Torah, as you can even clearly see by the actions. The rabbis who teach them and the rabbis who convert them. They're trying to get through every, Torah, law, and whatnot. It's all good. I definitely don't believe in Jesus, though. Yeshua, though, is a different story. Come on. They put up a facade. They never left idolatry, but they lied to everyone. And God sees it. Well, God doesn't see it. And again, every day in the paper, some new person is being exposed right now. Congratulations, you are now a Jew on paper only, under false pretenses, also known as Erev Rav. As far as I'm concerned, and as far as our sages are concerned, of course. And this is the same as born Jews who promote or legitimize anything from false doctrines called the New Testament, because the other one is the old one, right? As anything other than idolatry is what it is. Now, I've mentioned this several times before over the past few years. I've gone to several legitimate rabbis because I myself needed a cleansing, for the sake of tshuva. It's a process, and I did whatever I could in order to cover all my corners. I came out of the garbage myself, so people being as they are, a lot of forgiveness. What do I do? How do I deal with this? There are those who hurt me tremendously over the years that I had to make peace with before God. And then I asked about Jews who teach all the things that I pretty much speak against, right? I asked these rabbis, true rabbis who actually understand. I said, but they're Jews. What do I do with them? And the answer that I got, and I quote, they are not your brother. They are your enemy and the enemy of God. They are apikoris, and they lead people astray. Not only are you not required to forgive them, but you are required to stand against them. It's lisnotam. Yep, exactly. Now, if you think this is harsh, just look at King David, who used the words hate and destroy when it came to those who promoted idolatry. How are you going to bring your idols how are you going to mix this? How are you going to do this? And what of those who promote idolatry in God's name? Oy vey. What of those who legitimize even the slightest of false religion, which is essentially replacement theology, the smallest thing, tiny little thing. So everything Torah and halacha except just from that angle. Now, go ahead, do it. Yeah, deviant worship. Now, you've read what's been going on in Israel over the past 6 months, Messianics pretending to be Orthodox Jews and rabbis and everything, all coming up, all being exposed right now. Who's doing it? It says that this is what is going to happen in the end times. Mashiach is near because all these things have to be destroyed. They caused entire communities, these fakers, entire communities to sin. They lied and manipulated innocent people for the sake of what? Spreading the gospel, they said. Who do you think these people are? Well, we're here learning about them right now. You understand why the conversion process is so stringent? You understand this, right? If it weren't for this, it wouldn't have to be. But people who are not of their neshama, is truly not Israel, are trying to come in. Why? They don't necessarily even know that they're Erev Rav. They're like, yeah, I'm Erev Rav, I'm going to come mess some Jews up. No, it's their rotten soul that does this and then comes in. And again, based on their actions alone. If the shoe fits, everyone suffers because of this. They give bad names from the groups that they come from to the group, everything. So this is also why our sages say time and again that during the days of Mashiach, we do not accept converts. Done. And that is why I have zero tolerance when it comes to things like this. And like I said, I'm not done with this. I told you I got something special for you. The Erev Rav consists of 974 generations that God created before the world, and they consist entirely of the age of chaos, of Tohu. That one, the one that's already gone in the candle. And they are the brazen ones of the generation who will rear their ugly head before the coming of Mashiach, as we read in the end of Masechet Sotah. Here we go. In the times of the approach of the Messiah, impudence will increase. That's them. How dare you do this? In the Gra's commentary to Tikkunei Zohar Chadash 27b, he said, the maidservants and their children first. These are the Erev Rav, who are the children of Adam's first wife, she who will not be named. Oh yeah. And she is the disgraced maidservant, and of her it is said in Proverbs 30:23, under a hated woman who is married, and a maidservant who inherits her mistress. And her children, who will be the leaders of Israel, the disgraced mistress, as in also the children of what's-her-face, will be the leaders of Israel, to which the verse in Lamentations 1:5 is ascribed. Her adversaries have become the head. Hayu tzarea lerosh. Furthermore, the Gra calls the Erev Rav Rav Chovel, which means captain, like a captain of the ship. Rav Chovel. Meaning that in the exile, which we are currently in, especially in the exile of Edom, where Amalek rules, which we are currently in, and towards the end of the exile, which we are currently in, the Erev Rav will be the leaders of Israel. It started with the Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, 2,000 years ago, and 350 years ago, the Gra confirmed it along with the Ramchal. Don't argue with me. Leaders of Israel, who are they? What are they doing? If the shoe fits. Meaning that every single ruling party who are making decisions on behalf of the Jewish people are Erev Rav. You see what I'm saying right now? It doesn't matter how pious they seem, because they're not. We'll get into it. It doesn't matter what they look like or how they speak. In all our sources, the leaders of Israel, the shot callers, in the end of days, are Erev Rav. I have to keep saying this over and over again because most people have a very, very difficult time accepting this. I'll give you an example. I'm going to be a little bit more open here. There's a very prominent Orthodox organization here in Israel, they do tremendous amounts of outreach towards the secular world, right? They have their own YouTube channels, TV channels, websites. They print books, organize events that have dozens of well-known rabbis in Israel, and they speak both in Hebrew and in English. Anyway, on the surface, it would seem like they do a whole lot of good because you can't argue with all these things, right? And the reason for this is that if anyone says anything bad about them, people will just come to their defense and say, well, look at all the good they do, right? It's smart, okay? Do you know who leads the world's anti-smoking campaign? For the last 60 years is Big Tobacco. This is a known thing. The people that are most against smoking and all do the anti-smoking campaigns are the companies that promote cigarettes themselves. That's why blue, red, it's all a game. Do you recall how we discussed that? Again, all the political figures, everybody, both sides, it's just a game. If you control both sides of the aisle, you control the narrative. It's all a ruse, it's all a joke, and 99.999% of society are falling for it. Or rather, 99.94%. What's the survival rate of the magic plague currently? Yeah, everyone is falling for it. Anyway, back to this great rabbinical organization that do so much good. I used to watch them myself. I think we even have a book of theirs in the house. Anyway, turns out that these guys get a whole lot of funding, secret funding, from the government. Turns out that many of their leaders have used said funding for their own luxurious lifestyle. Turns out that they are regurgitating the government's mandates regarding learning Torah. Oh yes, what the government says, they now say to all these young, impressionable people who just want to get close to God. There are actually videos that I have seen and heard myself, okay, of these well-respected clowns who have done so much for society, putting conditions on learning Torah in yeshivot and houses of study. And I quote, "What is everyone waiting for? Get the magic cure so we can get back to how things were." I'm still going. Do you want to come back to learn Torah? Then get the shot. With a smile across their crooked faces. Sounds like Satan to me. Don't worry. We will learn soon enough which of the Erev Rav categories these guys are. But just so you understand, this is why they do all the good. It has nothing to do with good. It's to cover their butts for all the other things. Oh, yes, come in. And here's the real message underneath. So I know, for instance, if I named names, some of the names of these rabbis in the neighborhood where I live, about these individuals, and if I said this person is this, this person is that, I would probably be shunned, to say the least. We continue with the Gra's commentary for Tikkunei Zohar 162a. The Erev Rav are me'oravim, involved in Israel. There's also Erev Rav le'arbev, is mixed, but me'oravim is involved in Israel. And they are even worse than the heathen nations. Again, Tikkunei Zohar, Rashbi, 2,000 years ago. As they are the wicked ones of Israel, and they work primarily according to the times, whatever time they're in. From Shir HaShirim 2:11 it says, "For behold, the winter has passed, the rain is over and gone." For behold, the winter has passed, the reign of the heathen nations. The rain is over and gone, the reign of the Erev Rav. First nations have to fall apart. And then all the Erev Rav that are in Israel are going to be squeezed right out of Israel, refining silver and gold. In Tikkun number 12, it says, regarding the revelation of God in the burning bush. Why did God reveal himself to Moses in the bush? To show him that Israel is entangled amongst the thorns. And despite all that, the bush could not be consumed because of the roses among the bush. So apparently it was a rose bush. And these roses, who are Israel, will be entangled among the Erev Rav, the thorns, in the future. And this is a secret where it's written in Jeremiah 30, verse 11, "For I am with you, says the Lord, to save you, for I will make an end of all the nations where I dispersed you." Where are there Jews in the world today? Yes, also primarily the United States. The Jews, if America is not destroyed, Jews will stay there. Thank you, Jeremiah. Where God dispersed you, I will make an end of the nations. There might still be people living there, but as a nation, no way, Jose. Where I dispersed you, but of you I will not make an end, but I will chasten you with measure, and I will not completely destroy you. In other words, whatever tikkunim you got to go through, you're going to go through. But you're not done. Now it says, in the Hebrew, it says, Ach otcha lo ese chala. Chala with a chaf, not a chet, not challah bread, chala. Now, the word chala or kaleh, biblically speaking, means to completely destroy, to consume. In fact, this is the word that Bilam used to completely wipe out armies from existence. They hired him. He was a mercenary, right? He would stand before a 1,000,000-man army. It goes chalem, and whoosh, they be gone. No more. Done. Where'd they go? Who knows? And poof, they were gone. But he couldn't do this to Israel, though. He tried. But what is the other meaning of the word chala? It means bride. Kala, chala. It means bride. God showed Moses several visions within the same revelation. God showed Moses the outcome of the bride, who is the ingathering of Israel, Knesset Israel, which is the fire itself. Now you think the fire is a bad thing. Excuse me. But the fact that the Erev Rav are so entangled within Israel only speeds up the redemption, because they are even worse than the nations, as they are among the thorns. They got up close and personal. But if you think about it, do the thorns not also protect the roses themselves from praying hands or other animals coming to eat them or whatnot? What do we see in Song of Songs 2:2? As a rose among the thorns, so is my beloved among the daughters. Kishoshana bein achochim ken rayati bein abanot. This is Israel amongst the thorns. The Gra goes deeper into the understanding of the Erev Rav, in this case Amalek, who says that their identifying signs are conflict and lashon hara. They cause conflict through lashon hara. But the conflict is against everyone, not only against Israel. A prime example of this would be Hitler's inner circle. I've discussed this with you before. There was a documentary, and it showed basically all Gervin, whatever, all those crazy people working in there, Goering and Goebbels and Hans and Franz and all them. Anyway, okay, all his group, all his inner circle over there who are Nazis, we know that they are from the seed of Amalek. It's almost like they knew it too. They're also the ones who founded the CIA, who formed NASA. They run the U.S. government since World War II. Come on, they helped establish the Zionist state of Israel, our current state, and so on. Everything is on the table here, okay? I'm not taking sides. I'm calling everything for what it is. When you see the documentaries of what went on inside Adolf Hitler's inner circle, there was no peace among them. Like, yes, we want the Third Reich and to kill the Jews and all this. That's not what went on in there. Each fool was worse than the other. Although they were technically on the same side, they were all against one another. They wanted to murder each other. Bad people. There was internal conflict like crazy, and each one wished the other death or worse. Now look at politics today. Even among the same party, would you trust any of these people to babysit your children? Do you believe them? These people who still sit in Congress for years and years and become multi-millionaires, and they're telling you how to live? You trust these people? Really? I don't care what side they're sitting in. Enough already. I'm talking about the current political party that you voted for, wherever that may be. These people have been in government for years. On the end, they're whatever. You get it. I just said it. Anyway, and yet still, you believe in the system. That's what I'm saying. You not see the system as corrupt, And any good person who enters into that system will become corrupt by default. And if they won't play ball, you know how it goes. It's not only the American public I'm talking about here. Israeli politicians are the same corrupt pieces of human filth as any other politician. What? I'm supposed to be impressed that they're Jews? The sages already tell us that it doesn't matter when it comes to the Erev Rav. Person could be a Jew, Orthodox Jew, big rabbi, doesn't matter. And now we know those that start conflict are from the seed of Amalek, Jew or not. Here's another prime example of open conflict that our beloved Prime Minister, current, who sits in office without a single vote cast in his direction, said, a couple months ago to the public. What did he say? We discussed this. If you know anybody, and regurgitating what the clown in the White House said. They said it within 24 hours, both of them almost verbatim. If you know anybody who hasn't got the magic cure, I want you to get in their faces and don't leave them until they do. Convince them. Tell them. Wait, it's coming. It's going to be soon. It's forceful. Almost there. Wait. Instigator. Causing conflict amongst brothers. Amalek. And yeah, I'm saying it publicly now. If the shoe fits, it fits perfectly. Look, a bunch of Cinderellas. Anyway, as we read, Ben David cannot come until they and their memory are wiped off the face of the earth. So, as you can see, we got a lot of work to do, or God has a lot of work to do. We have a lot of things to endure. It's also written in Deuteronomy 25:19. Therefore, it will be when the Lord your God grants you respite from all your enemies around you, in the land which the Lord your God gives to you as an inheritance to possess, that you shall obliterate the remembrance of Amalek from beneath the heavens. You shall not forget. This is a whole nother look at this verse. Why does it say you shall remember and you shall not forget? But we already came into the land of Israel. We did not obliterate Amalek and so on and so forth. And so what do you think is going to happen? Another way to look at this conflict, says the Gra, is to cause conflict among Israel and come and take the crown. As in causing every side to fight, and since there's no government, come and take the crown. This was our fourth election, okay? What does it sound like? It sounds like divide and conquer. Exactly what our fearless leader is doing along with the media and the U.S. government. Everything is connected here. Everything. So what I say about the states, let it be known I say about the government in Israel as well. To cause conflict and then come and broker a peace, the savior of the world and so on. It's so in your face, but people would rather choose to live in denial than accept the truth, which is why this is very difficult to hear. And this truth is biblical. Anyone who argues with this, their conflict is not with man, you dig? Now, you have to understand, not everyone is Erev Rav, but everyone in the position of authority is, or at least works for them. The second class of winners we're going to discuss are the Nephilim. As we discussed, this comes from the root word nafal, which means to fall. We have also discussed that one of the titles of Mashiach is called Bar Nafli, which means the miscarried one, or he who falls, right? Bar Nafli, hapala, in Hebrew means to have an abortion. Anyway, it literally means the fallen ones. We discussed this, I forgot which class we discussed this, but on the fifth cycle, if we could pass through the fifth cycle, then Mashiach is going to come at the end of the seventh. But if he doesn't, then Israel, Knesset Israel, has to abort the coming of Mashiach. And this has happened already several times. So now we are currently in the final time. Let's do this. Let's get through the 5, okay? Anyway, so it literally means the fallen ones, okay? Nephilim. And who are these fallen ones? The first time we see the term outright is in Genesis 6:4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterwards, where we'll see afterwards, in Numbers chapter 13, right? When the sons of the nobles, this is what Chabad website says. It doesn't say the sons of the nobles. In Hebrew it says Bnei HaElohim, the sons of God. I don't hear this nobles stuff. It's to soften the language. Israel, whoever was in charge, did this to soften the language because people don't understand that there could be fallen angels. Seriously, no joke. Israeli populace, they don't know anything about fallen angels at all. The sons of God would come to the daughters of man and they would bear for them. They are the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. וילדו להם המה הגיבורים, the giburim, asher me'olam, anshe Hashem. Okay, now, so again, Hanephilim bore the giburim. Then in Numbers chapter 13, there we saw the giants. Sham ra'inu et ha-nephilim, the sons of Anak. Anak was not necessarily the giants, but rather that was his name. And he was a giant. Descended from the giants. In our eyes, we seem like grasshoppers, and so we were in their eyes. And as we discussed many times, Rashi says, Anakim mibnei Shamchazai va'Azael shenaflu min hashamayim b'yimei dor enosh. Giants, the children of Shamchazai and Azael who fell from the sky during the days of Enosh. Very plain and simple. How did I not pick this up in 4th grade? Those are the literal Nephilim, but who are the spiritual Nephilim? Who carry the the neshama of the Nephilim, the ones who have embedded themselves amongst the Jews. Who are they? The Gra says that they act like prostitutes as they chase after the pleasures of this world, just like what the Nephilim did back in the day before the flood. Why'd they come down? Daughters of men. These are the opposite of the people who were called to be judges and leaders of Israel in the wilderness. The same men who despise power and detest money. The men who lived and died for their brother's sake. This is the opposite of them. These Erev Rav do only for themselves, and it is for some odd reason it seems that they are people of chesed. These are the Gra's words. People of chesed, kindness. You can absolutely rest assured it is entirely for their benefit, but they come off as people of great chesed. Look how much he donates. Look how much he gives. Look at all the goodness he does. But what's really happening? Why is he doing all that good? The Zohar likens them to dogs. And Psalms 106 speaks of them in the following manner. For they rebelled against his spirit, and he uttered with his lips. They did not destroy the peoples whom the Lord had told them to destroy, and they mingled with the nations and learned their deeds. They worshipped their idols, which became a snare for them. They slaughtered their sons and daughters to the demons, Lashadim. They shed innocent blood, the blood of their sons and the daughters, whom they slaughtered to the idols of Canaan, and the land became polluted with the blood. And they became unclean through their deeds, and they went astray with their acts. So these people actually started off as Israel, who mingled with the nations, give us all your traditions and your gods and your false narratives, and then reincarnated into this. This is the corrupt spirit of the Nephilim that became mixed in with Israel. Wherever you see excess, you know who you're dealing with. The Gra continues. He calls them azei nefesh, brazen, as written in Isaiah 56:11. And the dogs are of greedy disposition, likened to dogs. They know not. They know lo yadu sav'ah. They are not satiated. They and their shepherds, who now. And they are shepherds who know not to understand. They all turned to their way, each one to his gain, every last one. Meaning, there were leaders. The corrupt leaders of Israel, ladies and gentlemen, one after the other, a convicted felon, one after the other, or on their way to be convicted. The Gra says that these are the same ones who complained and lusted after meat in the desert. Where can I get meat to live, to give all these people, right? Said Moses. For they are crying on me, saying, give us meat to eat? What? In the wilderness, they are crying for meat. Do we all know what the man is, the manna? It is sustenance for everything in the universe made of light that comes from beneath the throne of God that sustains all the angels. Once this light enters our atmosphere, it must take on physical characteristics and is likened to coriander seed, all stuck together to create an appearance of like wafers. Our atmosphere, by the way, is what changes the spiritual to the physical. Every time Elijah, the prophet Elijah, comes to the world, he morphs through, because he's all spiritual, morphs through the atmosphere, receives a spiritual body, goes up, loses it, and so on and so forth. Okay? This is what we were eating in the wilderness. This stuff sustained you physically, and yet its source is all spiritual, like the Torah, right? How do you fulfill something spiritually? Only through the physical, through the Torah. For 40 years in the wilderness, Israel had never had to go number 2. That's right. Do you understand? They had water burst forth from a rock that was following them and flowing for them wherever they went, and they had clouds of glory, providing shade during the day and a pillar of fire, providing warmth and light and protection at night. Within the camp, there was not a grain of sand or speck of dust in the desert. Do you understand what they had experienced? And yet they complained that they missed meat. They have all the spiritual things in the world, and yet they want the physical. That was not Israel. Isaiah 40, verse 6. A voice says, call. And it says, what shall I call? All flesh is grass, and all its kindness is like the blossom of the field. So again, these are not only individuals who are openly and obviously gluttonous, but rather those who seem like they are doing so much kindness openly. They want you to see it, when their entire motivation is for their own benefit. And that includes learning and toiling in Torah. Look, I learn Torah all day. I give all this money to this. Why are you doing this? First of all this stuff has to be done in secret anyway, right? No one knows the real tzaddikim of this generation. They are hidden from amongst us. For that reason, they don't want anyone to know their name, and these are the most humble people you would never know. You would have no idea who they are. The Grak continues to say how every time Israel sinned was because of the Erev Rav from among them, who persuaded them to do so, infected them in doing so, just like the evil inclination that resides in each and every one of us. It's the only way that we grow, through the evil inclination. In Masechet Kiddushin 70b, it says that the Gerim, the converts, are difficult for Israel like Safachat, psoriasis. Again, I'm not ranking on converts, okay? Please, I work with converts. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the false converts. That's how you get into Israel in the end of days. This is how the Erev Rav gets into Israel, being converts. And this all began with the golden calf. Now our third, okay, do we understand what's going on here? Not everyone who's a convert is bad. Chas v'shalom. You make that trek, you leave everything behind, welcome to the family. But a lot, as we see in the papers and the news, fakers and whatnot, they give everyone else a bad name. This is the Erev Rav. Okay, so that was second category. Third category. These are the Giborim. What is said about this group is that everything they do is primarily to make a name for themselves, right? Where can we see this? Genesis 6:4. The Nephilim on the earth of those days, we just read that. They are the mighty men, whom were of old the men of renown. Now Hebrews says, Hema ha-Giborim, this is the third group, Asher me'olam anshe Hashem. When we say, we don't say God's name, we refer to God as Hashem, the name. Anshe Hashem, the people of the name, not the name of God, the people of their own name. Anshe Hashem, the men who are all about themselves, their own name. Now after the flood, they reincarnated into the generation of dispersion, Tower of Babel, Dor Palaga. Genesis 11:4, and they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make ourselves a name. Literally, it says this, Naseh lanu Shem, we will make ourselves a name for ourselves. The Gra says of this group that they chase after honor and build things seemingly for his name, but it's actually for their own name. Do you want to know what the Zohar says of this group? Oh, I'm going to read it right now. And I quote, "These are the ones who build synagogues and houses of study, putting in Torah scrolls and crowns upon its head." I've known a lot of people who pretend to be rabbis who like to bring in Torah scrolls into fake synagogues with their name all over it, but the Torah scrolls are not kosher. So everyone blessing that Torah is sinning. Crowns upon its head, but it is not done in the name of God. Instead, it is to make a name for themselves. Did you see the beautiful synagogue that I built? It cost me $25 million. Thank you, Godfather. Yes, I am great because I have money. Of them it is said in Genesis 7:19, "And the watchers became exceedingly powerful upon the earth." The waters. "And all the lofty mountains that were under the heavens were covered up. V'hamaim gavru, giborim, overpowered, me'od me'od. These are the ones who suffocate the holy sparks with their own egos." Oh boy, have I seen this firsthand. With their own egos. Holy spark, yep. Because who builds synagogues and houses of study? Who does these things? People with a lot of money, or people who like to raise a lot of money. When we all know that you're supposed to give quietly, beseter, that no one should know who gives because you are not looking for recognition from men, but these guys are. You can't have your name up in the lights and expect to be considered a model of Torah-observant Jew, because that goes against derech eretz, the way we are told to do things. I mean, you see, even on YouTube, right? You have these videos, guy gives homeless man things. So you have a hidden camera showing everyone what a great guy you are, that you're giving a homeless man $1,000. That's wonderful. Do it without the cameras. I don't need to know who you are, where you're from, and how many clicks on YouTube you get. People are doing this all over the place. It's ridiculous. That's vanity. That's the mother of all vanity. This is quite the definition of this. I do it for my name. Look how much I'm giving. Know me. Look how much I'm giving. Know me. No. The true tzaddikim, who God has blessed with millions of dollars, the people receiving it have no idea where it comes from. Okay? The people handling it have no idea where it comes from. You must understand the difference. Anyone that puts their name up in lights, flashy, this, I did, me, I. Does it fit? It fits. Okay. The fourth group of the Erev Rav are called Rephaim, demons, ghosts, or in this case could be shades. Now, what are their characteristics? The Gra says that they do not want to do chesed with those who have any affiliation to the Torah, meaning Torah-observant Jews. Okay, so this is maybe a little bit more easy to potentially identify. And what does the Zohar say about these guys? If they notice a time of distress coming upon Israel, they abandon them. Again, we're talking about Jews abandoning other Jews who they could help, but they don't. Just watch them drown. Throw them a life thing? No, let them drown. Even if they have the power to save them, they do not do so. They abandon the Torah and avoid those who study Torah. Instead, they do favors for those who worship idols, just like them. Of them it is written in Isaiah 26:14, "The dead shall not live," as in metim bal yichyu, they will not rise from the dead. Shades shall not rise. Rephaim bal yakumu, they will not rise. Therefore, you visited upon them and you destroyed them. You have put an end to any memory of them. A perfect example for these guys is, let's say, during the Holocaust, there were a lot of Jews who sold out their brothers to the Nazis for gold. They would come and tell as many families as they could that they could sneak them out of Germany to a safe place. They would round them up in a secret meeting place at night. And of course, it was a trap. Nazis were there waiting for them, and they basically sold their souls at that point. Anytime a Jew has the opportunity to help to save another Jew's life and they do not, Erev Rav. This is something we also have in Israel today, the kind of vicious hatred of many secular individuals. Not all, many, because we will discuss, again, this class is going to go on. I thought it was only going to be 2 classes. It's going to be 3 classes, I think 3 classes about this, because there's a lot to explain. I can't just leave these things hanging. So next week, we're going to dive even deeper, okay? We're going to break it up even more. Okay, anyway. So in the mainstream Israel today, okay, you have such vicious hatred from many secular individuals towards any Orthodox person, anything. When I say individuals, these are not just individuals. They have parties in the government with tens of thousands of people in Israel who voted for them. Here's a name. The Meretz Party, for instance, is one of these parties, okay? A couple of months ago, this was in all the news stations, they forgot they have in every meeting of every party, they have a camera so their voters and viewers can watch them debate something like on live TV. They forgot to turn it off, and they had an open debate amongst themselves in their closed meeting. The way they speak of Orthodox people, the way they speak of people who live in the green zones, dogs, I love dogs. I don't know why. No one deserves that kind of treatment or disrespect, the way they spoke of Jews. These are Jews sitting in government who have been elected by thousands of other people. This is who they represent. But everyone who voted for them specifically because they have that same hatred, but you don't say that publicly, right? Now they did, and they got it, right? They got them on camera. It's like their whole agenda is how to make our lives miserable while promoting the Muslim Arabs. For real. These Muslims don't care how a Jew voted. They don't even care if you're Orthodox or secular. They want you dead, okay? And yet these fools and Meretz still would choose and have chosen to help those that openly express the desire to kill all Jews over any type of Orthodox Jew. That's them. Rephaim, ghosts. One of the tests that is coming towards Israel in order to expose these Rephaim is fear. Okay? As the world, led by America, publicly anyway, will turn on Israel, slowly it's going to happen, right? Because all the Jews need to get out of there. Everybody's got to get out of there and realize, oh, but America is Israel's greatest ally. No, America hates Israel more than everybody else. You just don't know it. If you learn some things, you will. You'll be like, what? Yes, it is true. 'Tis our reality. So, like we said, as the world led by America will turn on Israel, and it would seem that all hope is lost, all the Rephaim will get up and say, Rephaim as in from the Jews over here, hey, whoa, we don't want anything to do with these Jews. We'll take whatever you give us. We will worship we will do whatever we don't want. We're not them. Thank you. Excellent. Now we know who you are. So this is what God is going to do. Then when Mashiach comes, everyone is going to know who the posers are. It's very simple. Anyway, and again, it's not, and even if you know that this is coming, the fear is going to be so great, like the fear of complete and utter annihilation. Again, God said, we read time and time again, that the only way for Israel to be redeemed is through tshuva, and if they do not do tshuva on their own, God will bring them a leader as vicious, as vile as Haman, who said, I will destroy every last one of you, and that threat was absolutely real, just like this next one will be absolutely real. And all those who are the Rephaim will be like, no, we ain't Jews. Yeah, kill them for sure, no problem. Just, give me my money. Anyway, look out for these hypocrites. They can be found in many self-hating Jew groups, like Hollywood liberals, for instance, who openly speak out against Israel and openly mock anything that's sacred to the Jewish people. Just because you're a Jew, it doesn't mean that you could say anything against Israel or against whatever, okay? Which brings us to the fifth group of the Erev Rav, and they are the Anakim, the giants. Okay, now you have to understand something. I'm not saying anything bad here against Israel. I'm reading from the Zohar, I'm reading from the Gra, from the Ramchal, and I'm bringing you sources from the Talmud, from the Mishnah, and I'm breaking it down for you. Okay? I love my brothers. Everyone who trekked and made Aliyah and is actually living in Israel, I have a tremendous amount of respect for. And even those who have not yet come, I also have a tremendous amount of respect. I'm not talking about people who have a desire to get close to God. I never speak about people who have a desire to get close to God. I'm simply saying what the sages are saying about what is coming and what is currently here. And I'm pointing this out. So keep your eyes open. Okay, so the last one is the Anakim, the giants. Now, this group, by far the trickiest, okay? They hate, they despise Talmidei Chachamim, right? At least as much as the Rephaim, the group before. And they belittle them any chance they get. However, and this is the thing, they look exactly like righteous Torah scholars. So you're not going to have, some woman with purple hair and piercings be like, nah. No, it's not obvious. You're going to have the pious-looking individuals who genuinely, with all their heart, hate other Torah scholars. And this is envy, basically. The Erev Rav, who look like Torah scholars and pious individuals by appearance and deeds, are envious of the true, humble Torah scholars. They are envious of them, not because they want to be them. They just hate them because they know that they are of the light and they are of the dark. The only reason they try to be publicly more pious than they is to humiliate the real guys. These particularly come from the line of Cain, as in Cain and Abel. As we have learned before, Moses was a reincarnation of Abel, and Korach was a reincarnation of Cain. As Cain slew Abel, and the ground screamed with his brother's blood, so too did the same spot on the same plot of ground open up its mouth, and this time swallowing Cain and protecting Abel. That was a tikkun that was done right there. Cain was envious of Abel, and throughout history, God has given the soul of Cain opportunities to do tshuva through reincarnation, to rectify that sin. The two most significant times was Jethro, right, father-in-law of Moses, who was a reincarnation of Cain, and he left idolatry and joined Israel. And even beforehand, he took Moses into his home and he protected him. There was a whole story there before. First, he was in prison for 10 years, but nevertheless, here's my daughter. Okay, great. And if you're going to be like, well, how could Jethro and Korach be alive at the same time? Souls, it's not complete souls. Like we said, there's only one soul, and that is that of Adam. The first man, that was one soul. Shattered, and it went into all the different pieces, and then from there it was gathered up again by Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and then it went to 12 tribes, 600,000 men by Mount Sinai. That's where it should have been it. And then boom, golden calf, millions and millions and billions and billions of souls. So when I say reincarnation, it is a fragment of that individual soul. And then there's also not only a fragment of the soul, there's a fragment of your nefesh, your ruach, and then the neshama. It's very complicated, but trust me, that's how you could get soulmates, okay? That's why if two people are part of the same soul, that's where the soulmate concept is actually a legitimate thing. Another study. Anyway, that's what's up. Later on, where else do we see the reincarnation of a piece of the soul of Cain? The great Rabbi Akiva, who was the son of converts. His parents converted to Judaism. He was a reincarnation of Cain, and he became one of the greatest Torah scholars and poskim throughout the history of the world. He got up to levels of Moshe Rabbeinu. He has seen things that no one else alive or dead has ever seen. Rabbi Akiva did a rectification for Cain, son of converts. Nevertheless, these Erev Rav, Anakim, are out there among us. And what they speak with their mouths and what they mean with their heart are two very different things. And just like the rest of them, they too will be exposed. A great practical example of this kind of behavior are well-known rabbis who would publicly give you a list of other legitimate rabbis who they think is bad and who you should not listen to. Say, here's a list of rabbis. If you listen to them, you are going to hell. Or these same people said, if you take the shot, if you don't take the shot, then you're going to hell. Does it fit? Yeah. This is called also lashon hara. This is called causing division. This is called pathetic. And unfortunately, there are even some of you out there who listen to these individuals who I just referred to. And if you can see this for yourself, then hey, perhaps, good for you. But if you can't, then maybe you should continue listening and belong in that group. Anyway, that's it for today. Okay, as far as this teaching goes, is a lot, I know. But now here are the players. Next week, we're going to discuss what is going to happen with them before the time of the end, meaning during our time right now, as well as the conclusion to Acharit Kirishit. It might be, I'm still working on next week's class already. Again, it might be 2 more, not just 1. But anyway, I guess we'll see, because I'm still in the middle of that. So, as always, thank you really so much for joining me. I felt good in giving you this information. All right, and also the information in the beginning. Look at this guy's face. I mean, he's just a happy man, you know? All right. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Keep your chins up. Eyes on God. You'll be okay. All right? And one more thing. Remember, this is Tevet. Tevet is the hardest month. Tevet is the month of downers and depression. It's almost done next week, okay? So just hang on. We'll be okay. Anyway, y'all have a Shabbat Shalom now. I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.